Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, Kimberly. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
It's such a treat, Jamie. And I'm trying to think, when would we have first been on each other's podcast? Probably, I feel like it was World Domination Summit years.
Yes, I think so too. Which now I'm so bad at time. I have to tell you the truth. I can barely I can remember things that happened before or after, but never how long ago it was. But it feels a long time.
Yes, yes. Like, I'm gonna
Feels
be
like we've
really
been doing
technical.
this for a
Yes,
while, my
for
friend.
a
Yes.
while. Yes, and I remember meeting you at World Domination Summit, and I'm just gonna throw a date out there, but don't quote me, like 2010? Is that
I think that sounds right.
okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe even earlier. Maybe even earlier. And what that was such an amazing time. It was a wonderful time when we were blogging. It was a wonderful, really creative time when online communities were just thriving and people were really connecting. And it was so beautiful to be able to be in person with people at the World Domination Summit too, which sounds so much different than it really was, doesn't it, when
Right.
you say the name?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's pre-Instagram. It's like a whole
Yes,
other world.
pre-Instagram. Oh my gosh. Yes. I think this is why I love having these midlife conversations because we can say openly and truthfully, "Oh yeah, we were there then. We were there before that. We were there at the beginning of that, the beginning of podcasting, the beginning of Instagram, the beginning of blogging."
It's
It's really been
crazy.
an amazing ride. Yeah.
Which leads me into my first question.
Oh, good
So,
segue.
well
Okay.
done. But how has your perspective on life changed, right, as you've entered midlife and as you think about everything that you've experienced in the online world since we began all of this and became a part of all of this?
Oh, that's such an interesting context for that question. I I'll just dive right into one of the challenges I had, which was when I started to really feel my midlifeness, when I started to look in the mirror and feel like I'm looking different, I started to struggle a little bit more about showing up in the way that had felt so natural to me for literally over a decade. I didn't think twice about making videos. I didn't think twice about throwing myself into that world. And suddenly I was feeling self-conscious. I was feeling like I started to hide a little bit. And so that really did change my perspective and I felt embarrassed about that. I felt uncomfortable about that. I felt a lot of self-judgment around that too. But that was a really big change for me, and now I think I finally am coming through the other side of that, and part of that is my own desire to see and hear and experience women who are older than me. And so I have to remind myself that somewhere out there is somebody who's feeling that way about a woman like me who's gonna be like or someone who's been with me, like, working with me or seeing me or following me for, decades, to have them go, "Oh, wait, look at Jamie's getting older too." Like, we're all getting older, and that does make me feel less alone.
And hopefully wiser,
Yes, and
right?
hopefully wiser. I do trust that life experience, I do maybe it's the artist in me, the writer in me. I feel like I process everything. So I hope that I always am turning life experience into wisdom.
Yes, yes, ideally, right?
Yes.
Well, I'm curious, Jamie, because at the time of this recording, you just recently released the Crone Conversations, which I was blessed to be a guest on. And what would you say? I mean, because were there 10 interviews of women?
13. Yeah,
13.
13.
So, what would you say if you were to take all the main advice, right? Or takeaways from those 13 interviews, no big deal,
Yeah.
and synthesize it down? What would you say are the big nuggets that you noticed or that you felt like, ah, I feel seen or I feel part of
Mm.
something, understood.
Yeah. First, thank you so much for being a part of that. I really had a great time talking to you about this then, and I'm glad to be here talking about it now. And I will say that every interview changed something in me. Every interview gave me some kind of a gift. And well, certainly I'd say one of the big overarching themes, and I'm not so good at this, but was the joy of giving less F's. Like the sheer delight in having more freedom to just do what we want, say what we want, wear what we want, and just not be concerned about other people's opinions. I would say that was a major theme. And for me also, one of the things I took away was sort of the way to look at the past and also a way to look at the future. So, if changing the way I look at the past so that is not, I want to truly honor the things that I'm mourning, the parts of me, the times of life. I want to be honest about that.
Um,
And also, I want to be able to say, this is one of the things Sunny Schlanger said. I'm so thankful I got to do that. And that simple statement, like when I think back, let's say on my clubbing years, I'm not going to go back night clubbing again. I don't think. But I can say, I'm so glad for that time in my life. I'm so thankful to have had that experience. And that just shifts it a little bit. And same with, I can feel sad about the way blogging has changed, let's say. But I can also say, oh, I'm so thankful that I was a part of that first. Maybe I was really part of that second wave of bloggers. But so that appreciation for, and then part of that is also then trusting when I look forward that there's still more good stuff to come. And this was really important to me about telling new stories about getting older because we tend to think about it as loss and diminishment and getting smaller. And I didn't want to pretend to believe that, oh, there's good stuff still coming if I didn't. I didn't but now I do. Now I sincerely do think, "Oh, I'm really curious about what this next stage of my life is gonna be like." I have a stronger sense of who I wanna be, that wise, strong, and also brave woman. And I think that if I try to be wise and I try to be brave, no doubt I will have some amazing experiences to come.
Yes. And what I love about this is it ties into my next question. And I also just feel like the not giving as many F's. You and I spoke about that, and I'm sure it came up for many of your
Yeah.
interviews. But yeah, and then also it is a time for some people where they shrink and literally, literally shrink, not just
Yes.
like figuratively. But how do we actually embrace this time as a time to reinvent, to come forth as our own, to try new things like Miss DJ Jamie,
Yeah.
right? So tell us a little bit about like strategies that you found to be helpful in making transitions or continuing to show up fully and maybe even more more fully than you did when you were younger, right? And you felt like kind of
Yes.
confined by
Mm.
society.
That's such a great question because I will say I am much bolder than I was when I was younger. I'm a highly sensitive person. Mostly like I'm an ambivert, so right in between introvert and extrovert. And I tend to be shy. I tend to be like a little just, and if ever any young woman in particular ever asked me, what would you say to me that you wish you could go back and do, it would be to be bolder. And so that's one thing I am definitely embracing is I will put my hand up. I will toss my hat in the ring. I will. And as you alluded to, I recently studied DJing. And I mean, I thought for sure I would be the only woman my age in the class. And I wasn't, which was like, even that was amazing. And that told me that maybe things are changing too. So, embracing the strength of character I've earned over time, I think I know myself. And I know I have the strength to put my hand up. I have the strength to take the lead. I have the strength to speak my mind, and I hope the grace to do so with openness and and strength but gentleness. And and it is a weird thing, isn't it, that on the one hand, I felt as I was getting older, like this dissolution of who I was, like this breaking apart of who I was. And at the same time, there's this core Jamie-ness that's a non-negotiable for me. And and some of it's even a little, I don't know, maybe a little embarrassing. I'm a little earnest. I'm a little whimsical. I believe in magic. But the days of me sitting quietly, this I guess this is my version of not giving as many Fs, is the days of me sitting quietly and just listening and not sharing, "Oh, yes, no, I believe in magic," or "Yes, I do. Tarot cards, yeah, I've been using them since I was, like, 16 years old." Those I will just say it. This is me. This is me. And I think that's probably the boldness, the trust in myself, um, and the unwillingness to miss out on participating. I almost think of my shy little 12-year-old self, and I'm still saying to her, "Let's go. Let's do this."
Bringing her along on the
Yes,
journey.
yes,
Yes. No, it's
yes.
so important. And you know what I think is beautiful? Just as you've been talking, I was thinking about how we're both HSPs, we're both introverted. I mean, I know it sounds like you can be a little of both, but it's funny, it's that we've had these kind of, I'd say public personas. That's
Yeah.
a little excessive, but we've been online for a long time. And yet, how could we do that and yet be who we are? And I don't know what it is. I recently released a YouTube video about taking the stage of your own life, right? It's because I've been on stage, right, as an adult ballerina, but there's something about how can we all, so it was just the inspiration for it, but how can we all step forward and take the stage and whatever as a DJ or and whatever we may be. But I think for people like us, I don't know if it's harder than it is for an extrovert, but I think it's different. Do you
It's
agree?
I do, and I love that you brought this up. First of all, I love that idea of taking the stage in your own life. Fantastic metaphor. I love it. And I do one of the things I've noticed in my work, so I work with all different kinds of creatives, and I've been working with creatives for decades. And one of the things I really noticed that surprises a lot of people is a lot of introverts are performers. A lot of introverts are musicians, a lot of introverts are actors, a lot of introvert and there's something about the different way that we are expressing ourselves in the performing arts. Do you know? And so it's just a different context, but it's still transmitting. It's still sending out who we are and what we think. And I think sometimes it's a little bit of there's some separation. It's less interpersonal and more, I don't know what you would call it, extra personal. It's more talking to the field as a performer. And we as introverts are exceptional at that. We as HSPs are exceptional at that. We feel the field, and that's what we're communicating with as performers. So it's something I experience and it's something I've witnessed. I think you're absolutely right. This is just a part of who we as highly sensitive, introverted people are. Performers, who knew?
Who knew?
Yeah.
Well, and for you, I'm curious also, you mentioned tarot cards, but what are some of your like go-to rituals, right?
Mm.
For midlife? Are there certain things that you're like, my day has to be structured this way, or if I don't have this particular practice in my day or my week, it's shot? Are there things that you
Yeah.
found to be like really nourishing and grounding for you?
I have always, and this is one of the things I often, well, always teach in my programs is I always need a balance between structure and freedom. So I may know, for example, that I always need to move my body. It's just really important. As you get older, I spend a lot, you probably do too. I spend way too many hours sitting at the computer, but now my hips really tell me. They really tell me they don't want to do that anymore. So I need to move. But I don't care whether I dance or walk or get on the bike. It doesn't matter. It just, or do some yoga. It just matters that I move. And same with, I need to express myself. Like I need to have some way to get all of what's going on in here because I'm a big feeler. I need to get some way of all of this out. And so often that's journaling, but it could be coffee with a friend or it could be making some art. But expression has to be a part of my life or I'm just a bottled up mess. And so, and I do think that over time, I've learned what works for me, what's essential, and also options, like just ways I can flow between them. And I have enough trust in myself now. Like I have been immersed in creative practice for probably my whole life. And so I also have some trust in myself that if I miss a day, I'm not worried, Kimberly. Like I'm going to journal again. I've been journaling my whole life. I will journal again, just not today. And so that self trust has been really important too. So I don't have to get caught up in the loop in how am I going to get back to this? What am I, or self judgment? I'm like, it's okay. I'll get back. I will always be creating. And for me, that's one of the core things. And I'm so thankful, like deeply, deeply thankful to have been able to create a life and work that revolves around my creativity because now I feel like I've built a life where I can really be who I am. And it's just as long as I am engaged in ideas and like making things happen, then I feel like me and I feel fulfilled and I feel excited about today and I feel excited about tomorrow. And so I guess that my answer then comes a long way around to saying creating is probably one of my most essential. Taking care of my emotional, physical well-being and creating are like 2 really, really essential things in my life. Always and especially now. I think we all reach a point with our bodies where we realize, "Oh, it's not gonna just stay neutral if I don't do things. It's not gonna just be fine." No, 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 like, we have to actively look after our bodies, as best we can.
Well, 2 things. So, one is, have you heard of dead butt syndrome?
No.
It's a thing. It was in the New York Times recently, and then I Googled, and it's all over, but it's like gluteal amnesia. But it's about for the and I'm just gonna write down so I can link to
Yeah.
that in the show notes. But I was like, that sounds so horrible. But it's this thing where it's like for people who sit all the time, it's like our glutes lose their muscle memory.
Oh
And
my gosh.
interesting. So it might be something of interest for listeners and or for you, because I hear you and that's challenging. But I'm curious whenever you say creativity being so important, and I hear you and I see you, but I'm wondering for some of our listeners, because I hear this a lot for people who are like, I don't think I'm a creative person. I don't know how I would express creativity. And so I
Mm.
was just thinking, well, Jamie knows. So
I
would
do
you
know.
would you share some ways for our listeners who are like, I just don't have that spark anymore. I don't know how to reconnect to it.
Yes. And I think this is one of the big challenges because we've learned that creativity is the arts, which of course it is, and so yes, and we've learned also that it's something that belongs to certain people, or it belongs in certain places, or it belongs at certain times, where in fact, it's just the way we humans are wired. So when you get up in the morning and you're deciding what you're gonna wear, and you make an active choice, any active choice where you're like, I like the blue today, and I think I'll pair it with the plum. That is creativity. Every time you decide, Kimberly, I think about how everything you have is so beautiful. Like everything is always placed just so, and the colors are gorgeous, and on your teacup looks just so, and you'd have your teaspoon just so. And like that's creativity. It's take it recognizing beauty and not just like recognizing your own take on beauty, what you find to be beautiful, and then finding moments to create it, to cultivate it, to invite it into your life. All of that is creativity. And also, too, I think we underestimate how much we get caught in consumption. And so we can be quite critical of our scrolling. But part of what we're looking for is beauty we're searching for something when we do that, and that itself is a creative impulse. It's something in us longing to see and experience something in the world. So creativity to me can also be about connecting. It can be about receiving. Like I feel like I'm deeply immersed in my creative process when I'm listening to music, let's say, or when I'm reading a book. That is still it's being on the receiving end of creativity, but it's also creativity. So, what I would say for most people is first look at your day and see how many ways you're already being creative. What did you make for dinner? What did you think about giving your friend for their birthday? What did all of these things, just acknowledge how much it's already a part of your life. And then think about what would be fun or meaningful to expand. I think when you have an impulse, even an impulse to share an idea is creativity. When someone says something and you say something back, you know what? That's improv, right? So a conversation is creative. And so just shifting that perspective and allowing yourself to imagine, okay, if this is creative, what else might I do? Like, how else might I express myself? Maybe that's a part of the key. How can I express myself through dinner tonight, through the walk home from work, through grabbing my camera, through my clothing? And that'll unlock so much good stuff for you.
I love that because it's such a great reminder of how we do creative things every day, and yet we don't view them as an art project, right? And they're
Yes.
not. I mean, they're like day-to-day details, but it's in the details, and I love that you use the word beauty because I talk about beauty and balance in midlife, right? And beauty is
Mm.
not about like our outward appearance, it's not about makeup. It's about creating a beautiful life, a life that is expressive of your insides. And so I love that you use that word because it's such an important aspect, I think, and really, yes, our expression of creativity, but also our delight and pleasure.
Yes, yes. That delight and pleasure is so powerful. And again, we get the idea that it's an extra, that it's frivolous. We feel like the more fun we're having or the more joy we're experiencing, the more frivolous something is, and the less joy, the more serious and important it is. It's the most ridiculous
Yes.
overlap of ideas because the truth is often when we're doing something that we really love and are enjoying, it's also deeply meaningful to us. And the other thing too is we as people, we just need pleasure. We need it. And so if we deny it to ourselves, we our bodies, our minds, our heart, they'll find a way to get it. And so they may find ways to get it that are far less healthy, far less positive, far less nourishing than if you would just allow yourself to enjoy and to say, yes, that's beautiful and I want it in my life. Yes, that feels good. I do want to have a massage. I want to feel the pleasure of touch and like somebody seeing what's tight in my body. That is a way of being seen. Is when somebody goes, "Oh, I see you're tight here." You're like, "Oh, thank you. Thank you for releasing that, but also thank you for seeing that in me." So I think that embracing our pleasure is actually incredibly healthy and incredibly important.
And I think that is so much where beauty and creativity do flow. So thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
What about challenges, Miss Jamie? I mean, not that we have any challenges or midlife has any challenges, but if one did, or if you had, what would you say are some challenges that have arisen for you that are midlife specific and how you have learn to navigate them maybe in a way that's different than you would have in your 20s or 30s?
Oh, that's such a great question. So one of the things, and actually if other people have, Kimberly, you too, if you have good strategies for this, I'd love to hear it because it's the oddest thing and I'm just starting to notice it. And it's a kind of dysmorphia is maybe the wrong word for it, but where I'm starting to recognize, and maybe it's because I don't have children. So I'm not around tons and tons, like I don't have young people as a part of my life every day. And what I start to notice is that as a midlife person, there are things that I find just normal that now identify me as old. Right? And so I've been thinking about this with my parents too, where I'm like, I would go to their house and think something was really old fashioned. I realize now they didn't think it was old. They just thought it was nice, you know? And so it's I'm finding it discombobulating because I can't quite, again, as a highly sensitive person who navigates a lot by that kind of pinging the world, I'm aware that sometimes no matter how loving my heart, no matter how open my mind, no matter what, I'm gonna say something and someone's gonna go, "Oh my god, I can't bel" Jamie's so old school, she used that word, like, she said, "Hey, guys, do you wanna go out for dinner tomorrow night?" Or something, whatever, and I will not know. And so actually, something came up in the Crone conversations where I had a conversation with one of the interviewees about something that had happened, and it was just a little miscommunication, and I said, "I don't wanna be awkward about it." She was like, "No, I want to know. Tell me so that then I can." And that's how I feel too, is like, I wish people will lovingly say, "Oh, this is how you use the new bus passes." Whatever the thing is. I just recognize that I feel like a highly capable person
Yes.
who's reaching the limits of their
Right.
knowledge of the communal space. Thanks for
Ah,
laughing. That makes me know I'm not
oh my
alone in
gosh.
this oddness.
You are not alone.
So that's been the challenge that I've been, and again, as a highly sensitive person, that can shut me down, right? Like, I can start to get really scared of life, and that's why it's so important for me to give myself permission to get it wrong and to be embarrassed and to learn to let it go. I'm really not good at that. But if the option is to get smaller and quieter and maybe stop taking the bus, it's not a good thing. I want to be brave enough to get it wrong and keep learning. I want to continue to be a part of the world and to navigate it well.
Yeah, I love what you're saying because it makes me think, and typically I'll just text these things to my partner or laugh about it if I'm with someone. But I was at an endodontist because I need a root canal. And there was a woman older than me, maybe 30 years older, and she had a cane and she was really struggling to hear. And they were having her sign all these things on like the electronic document. And then she had her step back to get a photo. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much for someone who's 80 to be like navigating all of these different technologies. Then I get up and I'm ready to leave. Somehow I navigated those, but I think because I heard what she was going through before me. And then I get up to leave and I'm like trying to schedule a root canal, but I'm a paper planner and I'd left my planner at home. So my partner's texting me my planner pages and I'm paying. Well, I don't remember paying, but I paid her. She gave me the card back. She asked if I wanted a receipt. I said no. And so finally, based on the text messages about my planner, get something scheduled. And then I said, "Oh, well, don't I need to pay?" And she's, "Well, you just paid." I'm like, "Oh, of course I did." Right? Then I turn to exit and I go into the treatment area instead of the back door. And I just was like befuddled, I was like, "What is really happening?" But I had those moments a lot, Jamie. And I'm like, so I feel for you in the bus pass. You're like, sometimes it's I just can't. It's too many new things sometimes, right?
Yes, yes. And then I have to go back and forgive my dad for never really understanding how to use the computer and continuing to teach until his last days with an overhead projector. I'm just like, "Bless you, dad, I get it."
Bless you. I see you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. It is I think it's really good to be able to laugh at yourself because you're right. Otherwise, you could shrink and you could be like this beautiful woman who was like, what I loved is she was like, I can't believe they have candy in the dentist's office. But we could shrink and she's still out there and she's still figuring things out and getting places on her own. And
Yeah.
it's not easy, right, to take all this in. And so, what can we do to recognize that in ourselves, have some self compassion, and also a little humor along the way? It makes a big difference.
Yes, I can feel that just in us being able to laugh about it together, it already just doing that makes me feel lighter about it and realizing it's okay. I'm not the greatest at laughing at myself, but, I understand the value of it.
Right, right. You're like, "I've heard it's good for you."
Yes, exactly. I can say that my husband's been really amazing at this. Somehow he's just been the only person who can just gently say a little something and I'll laugh and go, "Okay, that's fair. That's totally fair." It's
Yeah,
true. I can't deny it.
right, right.
So,
Well, I'm curious for you, like, too, prioritizing health and wellness, right? Because you talked about being on the computer a lot and what that
yes.
does for the body. Because I remember there was a TED Talk that came out a few years ago that sitting is the new smoking, because we
Oh,
sit all the time, and, of course, during the pandemic, I think a lot of people got even more immobile.
yeah,
And so it's hard to be getting back out there and especially when everything hurts.
yeah.
So how are you prioritizing? I know with the DJ stuff, I'm sure you're dancing a lot.
I am dance I wish I could feel more I wish I had a better answer because I think the fight between the part of me that knows I need to move more fights with the part of me that even though I don't wanna sit at the computer, I feel like I want all my lifetime's worth of work to pour through me into what I'm doing. And so I get very sensitive about being taken away from it, even though I really do know, and I have lived experience to say that when you go for a walk, when you get out, when you move your body, you are so much better. What maybe would have taken me 20 hours takes me 10 hours. It's just true. So, I think one of the things I've been trying to do is I've really put a priority on getting outside. Now, I know this is not available to everybody, so I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge when I say I go for a walk that that's not available to everybody. And one of the things that I always recommend in that case, and this is less about your body and a little bit more about your spirit, is to I don't care how cold it is, for a few minutes and I do this every morning, even in the winter. I open my like, when I get up in the morning, I open the window and I just sit in front of the window and I just breathe for a few minutes, just to remember the world, right? Just to feel the world. And that's why I've put a priority on getting out and walking because especially, yes, during the pandemic, I think I got very isolated, and I'm very good at being in my own little world. I'm very entertained, and I'm good company, but I needed to get out, and recently, I've a while ago, I got up the courage to ask my brother and sister-in-law if I could walk their dog. It felt very tender to me because I've never been able to have a dog, and I've wanted one ever since I was a little girl. And they got a new puppy last year, and I've never walked a dog, so I didn't know what they'd say. So they said yes, and now it's just like the best thing for me to go out, and Juno has just got so much energy. So we go out and we take an hour and we walk and we go to the park and we say hi to other people. I also, Kimberly, because I'm an introvert, I was like, the only thing I don't wanna do about walking a dog is, like, having to talk to people. But the truth is I have loved it. I just the nicest not everyone will wanna talk to, but the people who are walking their dog and wanna talk tend to be very kind, nice people, and so we have lovely little chats. So it's turned into something social, it's turned into something physical, It's turned into something for my mental health because also when I take Juno out, I do not look at my phone. I do not put on my headset. It's just me and her. And I'm paying attention to her, and she's sometimes paying attention to me. But so those are the things I've prioritized. And I've also decided to just, I know, I think I said this earlier, just make sure I move each day and not be concerned about how I do it. So it's so, when tell people that one of my regular practices is to dance, it sounds like such a big deal. But we've been doing it since we were teenagers or earlier. Just put on your headphones, put a song on in Spotify, put shuffle on your whatever your playlist is, and just say whatever shows up right now, it's gonna be one, it's gonna be like a musical tarot card. I'm gonna know there's a message in it for me today, and I'm gonna take it. And two, I'm just gonna move my body to it. It does no one's watching, no one cares. I can wiggle, I can jump, I can strut, I can shake, I can do whatever I want. I'm just gonna let the music move my body. One song a day. And it doesn't have to be a big deal, but it is always a big deal.
It's powerful. I mean, it just gets those endorphins going, right? It's a
Yes.
dopamine hit. It's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. And it's a great thing to choose because it's so easy. It's a great thing to choose. If you find yourself moving towards whatever your habitual thing is that you're like, "Oh, I should probably be doing less of that, go song and a dance."
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so fun. And right, you'll read like dance around your living room like nobody's watching. But I'm like, how many people do that whenever they read that advice? But I like it. And I think it is really powerful. And sometimes it's okay. I'll follow along. Maybe there's
Yes.
someone on TV because it can be hard, I think, for people just to improvise and move their body sometimes, especially as we get older. We're so shut down in that area. And
Yeah.
so to have some inspiration, I think can be so powerful.
That's a great point, and it really is true that moving our body is a physical vocabulary, right? And so just like when you start doing visual arts, let's say, you may not have a visual vocabulary and you start to need to learn how to see things in shapes, right? And the same with your body. And so for people who heard that and said, "Oh my gosh, I relate," then just one easy thing to do is to just choose a body part. And even you can decide to dance with your hands, and then the next time the chorus comes around, switch to your butt because we don't want that dead butt syndrome. And the
Oh,
next time the chorus comes around, do your feet. So just don't, part of it is taking any self-judgment and just placing it somewhere else. It is not a class. It's not learning to dance a certain way. It's just like, what do my fingers want to do? And it takes a little while to give them some practice, but your body wants to move.
yeah.
And your body and your spirit really do love to dance. And
Yeah.
so if you trust yourself to just, so that's an easy, trust yourself to listen and to respond. And then that's an easy way to start. Just move your head, just move your fingers, just move your hips, just move your elbows, and just work your way through your body as a starting point.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. That's such a good reminder. Focusing on one part at a time, like a body scan, but a moving
Yeah,
body scan.
exactly. Yes, yes. Yeah.
Well, my last question for you, Jamie, is the name of the podcast, of course, Tranquility du Jour. And so, how are you finding tranquility in your everyday? And I know you've mentioned lots and lots of ideas already, but is there anything that you haven't mentioned that's helping you find a bit more tranquility, really, in midlife in general?
Mm. Actually, I was just writing about that today because I have not been finding very much tranquility and I've been needing it. And one of the things I've done is to embrace more silence. So I have found that recently, I'm writing about this for my newsletter. I have had my headphones on all the time. Like listening to, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to books. I'm listening to music. I'm listening. Like I'll get up out of bed and I'll be like this. I'll put my headset on. I'll start listening to a class as I'm feeding the cats. And I'm like, okay, just no. Just so I know what I've needed for tranquility is less sensory stimulation, more connection to the moment I'm in. So there's the du jour part, right? Is, well, what's the weather like today? What are my cats doing right now? Petting the cats is just brings me right to this moment, because you have to pay attention. What are they liking? What are they not liking? How you want it's a relationship, and I wanna be in it. So, less distraction, less because that's the other point is noticing when something that was once very nourishing and interesting and engaging has just become noise and chatter, and to say, "Okay, put that down and just embrace some silence, listen to the sound of my own life, whether it's like literally the hum of my computer, the cats jumping up on the counter, whatever it is, and being here now." So it's simple and it immediately made me feel better. Like
Mm.
just the impact was immediate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, there is something about being able to shut it all out and really tune things out to listen within and be within. So powerful. So thank you, Jamie.
Oh, thank you so much, Kimberly. What a great conversation. I really love spending this time with you. And I'm just so honored to be on your podcast.
You. It's such a treat to have you, and it's such a treat to participate in the Chrome conversations, and I'm just delighted to reconnect. So thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening.